Welcome, fight fans, to Deep Waters here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. George DeMatteis, alongside the champs, Paulie Malignaggi and Chris Algieri. And after about a, 4-hour stint on the IR, Teddy Atlas, Hall of Fame trainer, is joining us as well. Teddy, it is good to see you. We're going to get your thoughts very quickly here on this Oscar De La Hoya Canelo Alvarez situation, because Oscar, he might be trolling a little bit ahead of Canelo's fight against Munguia. Let's take a look at what he put on Twitter there regarding the press conference that took place in Beverly Hills. It says, or Oscar on his X account says, yesterday's press conference was so boring, like Canelo's fights. Wait till I unleash. Well, he's got about a month and a half to unleash before the fight between Munguia and Canelo. All right, Teddy, let me start with you here. What do you make of obviously, Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo have history. What do you make of Oscar's comments there regarding the press conference?
How things have changed, right? A few years ago, he was his golden boy. And it's just, as we always say, it's business, right? It's not personal, I guess, although some of it does sound personal. But it's amazing how I look at a great fighter like George Foreman, right? And he had a metamorphosis where he went from, the sultry George to, the intimidating George to serious George to cheeseburger George, and then heavyweight champion 45, special man. I mean, but the point is that he completely had a second coming. And I look at De La Hoya, and it seems so long ago now when he was a teenage idol. He was a great fighter. He was the face of boxing. Not Canelo. You go back to De La Hoya's day. And again, you talk about a change. Wow. You talk about a metamorphosis. He goes now to a guy who is, he's like one of those guys from In Living Color, one of those characters where they're doing skits from Saturday Night Live or something, where he's become all in with, I guess the word is trolling. I don't follow that stuff, but whatever it is, that he's now this guy where in some ways, I don't know, in some ways a little sad almost, because this was a guy who was a hell of a fighter. This is a guy that brought crossover fans. He was like Elvis Presley in boxing, bringing young women, young girls to boxing. And now he's this guy that, like I said, he's like a cast member from In Living Color, doing all these kinds of, skits. You wonder, people always ask, why does somebody, when they get out, what do they miss the most? And why do they stay too long? Why do they come back? And, the obvious is money. But then you always hear, too, that it's the spotlight. It's the attention. It's being relative again. You can be addicted to that. I think that he makes a case for that, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to go deep with the psychoanalysis here, but you do kind of need psychiatrists in boxing nowadays to figure out some of the stuff that's going on. And the way I look at it is that Exhibit A in a courtroom, why guys can't get out of boxing. They get intoxicated with the attention, with the celebrityness.
Well, Teddy, it seems like he gets intoxicated with some other things as well. Some other stuff.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and it's Teddy. It's funny you said trolling, and that's a great point there, because a lot of people think that maybe Oscar De La Hoya is trolling Canelo a little bit. Obviously, we mentioned there's a little bit of history between them two. Paul, you think there's a little bit of trolling going on in promotion of the fight?
I think this could turn into a bit of a soap opera if Canelo bites back. I'm telling you, me and Broner had a bit of this soap opera type stuff, and it ended up becoming the highest selling, highest rated Showtime Sports event of 2013. I'm telling you, if Canelo starts to bite back and Oscar starts to bite back, yes, it could go down the gutter. It could get a little feisty at times. But I'm telling you, a guy like Canelo who already sells close to 1 million pay-per-views at a time, you could get close to 2 million if you do this crazily. And I don't even know if I want to condone it. I don't even know if I should condone it. But I'm telling you, from personal experience, this kind of thing becomes mayhem, and everybody jumps all in on it. I mean, TMZ will get all in on it because these guys. It's not me and Broner where it was a certain tier of star. This is Oscar and Canelo. This is like this will cross over into like and Munguia will be part of the play just because he's a fighter in the fight. Then there's the whole revenge factor. Oscar had Canelo. Now Canelo's his own man. Dude, it could turn ugly, but you can get 2 million pay-per-view sales. I don't know if I'm condoning it. Don't shoot the messenger.
Right.
I'm just telling you.
Honestly, the narrative, I think, was part of the sell for this fight. It's part of the sell. Because, listen, Munguia is not going to sell the fight. Munguia and Canelo, they're being buddy-buddy. They're showing too much respect. But then you bring in De La Hoya, there's going to be no love lost between those two. And like you said, that sells. Controversy sells.
You guys, I tell you, you're right on the button. And what's a little bit sad about it, too, is that Munguia becomes almost furniture in the room. I mean,
an ornament. He's an ornament on a tree.
I mean, really, and really, look, we all got feelings, right? And how do you think he feels about it? How do you think that Munguia is going to feel about that as it goes down the road that Paulie just described in a right on the button way, where it could easily go down that road? How's Munguia going to feel, being an ornament, on the tree? It's got to affect him. It's got to affect his attitude towards the fight, his attitude towards his promoter, where he'll probably, I wouldn't be shocked if he felt, and he wouldn't be, it wouldn't be wrong for him to have feelings like that his promoter is, caring more about him getting promotional time and him getting attention than his fighter.
Well, I think being able to jump back into the spotlight, stay relevant with what's going on, but it calls out every fighter when they fight. De La Hoya kind of does the same thing, and it seems like Ryan's taking a little bit of playbook from De La Hoya from back in the day by staying relevant any way that he can, whether it's good or bad. Good news, bad news. Listen, the media doesn't care as long as you're news, as long as you're in the cycle. And it seems like De La Hoya has kind of been mastering that for quite some time.
Chris, is this a distraction? Could this be a distraction for Canelo?
It could be distracting for either fighter. It
okay.
Could be, Munguia could fall into that position where he goes, listen, I am just an ornament. Look at this. They're not worried about me. And then Canelo could get so ravenous about the situation
Oscar.
with De La Hoya, it takes his eye off the prize a little bit.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate. How's it going to be a distraction when this is going to make everybody talk about the fight? This is going to make everybody. Like, all it takes right now is Canelo to bite, and literally everybody will be talking about this fight. Boxing fans, non-boxing fans, casual fans, completely people that never watch fights to begin with. The news, the regular sports news, the regular news. I'm telling you, all it takes is Canelo to bite, and now you have a back and forth. I don't think it's possible to get distracted. I think that this becomes mainstream stuff if it's done right. And again, I don't even know if I want to condone it, because once the contact happens back and forth, you're on now. Now you're on until May 4th.
Wait, no questions. It'll blow it up. And listen, I want it to happen, actually.
Yeah, I think we all do.
But the soap opera. The question was, could it affect either one of the guys? And Munguia, and listen, we're fighters. We like the spotlight. Munguia is not going to get that spotlight if Oscar and Canelo are fighting over him.
But if he beats Canelo, he does.
Well, sure, but the lead up, that mindset going into a fight matters. So that's really my point about that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And of course, I was waiting for Teddy to go that Oscar needs to go to the zoo, but we'll leave it at that there.
Who is he?
It was said that it was 55 million.
But who is he to offer me? And if he offered the amount he say, that amount I can make with anybody. So that's nothing. He brings nothing to the table for me. he brings just 25 pounds more in the night, the fight on the night.
Welcome back to Deep Water. Strong words from Saul Canelo Alvarez. All right, Chris, what did you make of his words there? Because we all know, or we all want him to fight David Benavidez. That's the fight we want to see. But he made some strong points there about why it's not happening. What are your thoughts about what he said?
Well, just to answer what he's saying, who is he? Who is he? He's the guy everyone's asking you about when you're fighting somebody else. Because we want that fight. The world wants that fight. And he is the most deserving contender in the weight class. And that's what being a champion is all about. You take on the next in line. You defend your titles against the viable contenders. And the most viable contender in the world today, the most earning, the one who's earned it, the position, is David Benavidez. And that's the fight that we want to see. And I think stylistically it's a great fight. I think that it can be a humongous event. But I kind of agree with Benavidez when he's saying, he's like, well, 150, 200 million. Is that a realistic number? Or, and this is another thought, is potentially Canelo planting the seed for that Saudi money. Because when I first heard 150, 200 million, I was like, oh man, this guy doesn't want this fight. But then I was like, oh wait, actually we're in a different era now. These kind of dollar amounts can be actually made because we have an outlet that is putting on massive amounts of money with these great shows and getting fights made that could never be happened before. So potentially, Canelo's putting on his promoter hat, thinking ahead, putting his mastermind cap on, and he's planting that seed like, hey, listen, if a promoter, wink, wink, came out with 150, 200 million, we can make this fight happen. Can we test in the waters? We'll see. I know my esteemed colleague right here is gonna jump down.
All right, esteemed colleague, what's your reaction there?
If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. All right, guys. This guy doesn't want to fight David Benavidez. As a matter of fact, if you give this guy the 150 million that he's asking for, he'll find a way to make it more difficult either way. I'm not saying he would still duck it, but he'd still find a way to try to maneuver around, much around it as he could by asking for more money. On top of that, asking for more options, eliminating rematch clauses. Because once you get $150 million from a neutral venue, now a rematch clause should probably go for both ways, and I'm sure both sides would want a rematch clause. This guy would probably try to eliminate the rematch clause in the event that he wins, but he would try to get it in the events that he loses. This guy would still not take just the $150 million. I'm telling you, this guy does not want to be in the same sentence. He doesn't want his name in the same sentence as David Benavidez, let alone in the same ring as David Benavidez.
So not 200 million either. That wouldn't matter.
I'm just saying I'm not saying he'll duck it at that point when there's that kind of money, but he'll still make it difficult. He still won't, like, you get that kind of money, you'll be like, all right, I'm signing on that line. No, right. not Canelo. He'll still try to maneuver around it, try to get as much advantage as he can because he knows that would be the end of the line for him. And he knows that. He knows that because that's why he's ducked this fight every single way he could.
Well,
but
I'm surprised. I thought you were going to say, no, he's not fighting no matter what.
No. Your logic has to dictate here. And of course, the Triple C crew, the Triple Cs, which is the Canelo Clown crew, the Canelo Clown Brigade, the Canelo Clown crew. You talk about everybody wants to see this fight. Everybody wants to see Canelo fight Benavidez, except the Triple Cs. The Triple Cs just want to see
Clown Cartel.
Yeah, no,
oh, okay.
Not even. I don't even
or
want to.
Or insane Canelo posse.
Yeah, because we don't want to offend anybody. It's the Canelo Clown crew. The Canelo Clown crew wants to see Canelo fight anybody he can beat. They don't care. They don't care about competitive fights. They don't care about solid matchups. They don't even care about boxing. They just care about being on their knees whenever Canelo's around. And that's what they want to do. So when you make this kind of situation possible, they will still make all kinds of excuses the way Canelo's making all kinds of excuses to make this fight. You know, you have to be careful what kind of lies you put out there. And when you're a liar, you have to have a good memory. You know, the whole I don't want to fight Mexicans has already been exposed as a lie he couldn't keep up with. He forgot about that. He said that. Now he's fighting a Mexican. And he's basically spitting in your face. It's not our face. It's not making my day or night. You know, but as boxing fans, I think he's spitting in your face. I think boxing fans should be more offended than anybody else. You know, I'm just here calling it out for you guys. But honestly, it doesn't offend me more than it should offend you guys. You guys are the ones that are paying here. But now you're talking about what does this guy do for me? Who is this guy? First of all, you offered him like $5 million and no incentives, and it was something crazy, right? What was that crazy offer they made? It was like and Benavidez accepted it, mind you. So he's not offering you anything. You guys offered him to try to test him, just to try to say he tried to price himself out because he wanted more money than that measly amount that you offered him, and he still took it. So now you don't even have that to go on. So you took a gamble and you failed that one. You crapped out on that one. So now you got to figure out another lie you got to figure out. So now you're going to say, again, losing track of all the lies you have put out there, you put out and say, oh, who is he? Bro, not even 12 months ago, you fought John Ryder. And no disrespect to John Ryder, who's a capable guy. Who's John Ryder as far as star power is concerned? Because now you're putting it, not as far as capabilities, because John Ryder, I admit, is a capable fighter. But now we're talking about star power. You're trying to compare star power. What are you talking about, bro? Not even 12 months ago, you fought John Ryder. What are we saying? What do you mean, who is he? By that standard, who is most of the guys you're fighting then? You know, I don't know, bro. And of course, the triple C's are going to defend this. You know, they're going to get mad at me for calling it out and calling it, putting it out there like I see it. If the Saudis put up this kind of money, I think the fight would happen. Will the Saudis care to put up this kind of money? I don't know. It might, because it might be overpricing it even to that degree. But boxing is supposed to do the right thing. Boxing is supposed to do the right thing. This is the best fighter in the 168-pound division. Probably Canelo's probably number 3 right now. I don't even think he beats Morello at this point. But and I'm not sure he beats Munguia. The Munguia fight is right there, okay? But you're talking about the guy that it's supposed to be in the ring with you and nobody's enforcing it. This is not even a sport anymore. It was a sport/business. It is you're eliminating the sporting aspect completely out of it. You know what I mean? Because now when guys deserve decisions against bigger stars, they never get them anymore. So that's a business move instead of a sport move. And now it's getting to the point where guys don't even have to fight these people anymore when they're too big of a threat to the major star. This is no longer a sport. This is getting ridiculous.
Well, all right, Teddy, let's talk about Canelo's legacy real quick. How does the fact that he might need $200 million to fight the best competitor for him, the best contender for him, how's that impacting or could impact Canelo's legacy?
Well, I always want to make sure that Paulie is not hated by the Canelo fans more than me.
The triple C's.
You know? Yeah, I always want to be behind my guys and always with my guys. So just to make sure that the Canelo CCs, whatever they are, the triple C's.
Canelo Clown Crew.
Yeah, just to make sure they don't just hate him and they continue to hate me just as much. I said a long time ago that it's ludicrous that these fans call him the greatest Mexican of all time. He's a good fighter. I get it. He's a hell of a fighter. All right, no problem. And he's been around a long time, since he's 16. He's only 33. It's amazing how long he's been around, 17, 18 years already. And he's won all kinds of titles, but he's picked his spots really well. And look, you get to pick his spots if you're the money guy. You're the money guy. You're the guy who brings money. That's the way it is in anything in life, not just in boxing. So, but for the fans to get outraged at me, first of all, it makes me think of what Paulie says. There's a lot of smart people out there, a lot of smart boxing fans, but there's a lot of dumb ones. I have to say it. And Paulie says that, and people get mad at him, but I have to back him up because they don't even know the history that they're arguing about. They don't even know the great fighters that are in the history of Mexicans and who they fought. And how they fought so many great, and they fought everybody. They have no clue. And then they say Canelo's the greatest. If he ever wants to be able to have that argument, he has to fight Benavidez. Now, look, he don't have to. He's got all the money in the world. Unless he loses his mind, he's going to be set for 10 lifetimes.
But Teddy, then it's a business move. It's not a sport. If he doesn't have to fight him because it's money, then it's a business and not a sport. It's making my point again. From a sporting perspective, this fight is supposed to happen. This is the number one, the best contender in the world to the champion.
But if
this is the way the sport's supposed to move.
The
sport moves this way.
If he's ever going to want to argue, like he got mad one time when somebody said that, I remember there was one of these freaking guys with those little cameras, and they wind up getting, 400,000 views, and they catch some clickbait, and they took something from me where I said he was overrated. So then they showed it to Canelo, who walking into a fight, and he did the same thing. The only difference, he wasn't wearing glasses. Who is he to say that? Who is he to say that? Nobody. Just a guy who's been around boxing 50 years. That's my opinion. But I say it from data. I say it, from documented facts. You haven't fought everybody. If you don't fight, forget about being the greatest Mexican of all time. If you don't fight Benavidez, you're not the greatest 168 pounder. You're not the greatest super middleweight. You want to say you're the best super middleweight in the world right now? Then you got to fight Benavidez. And to Paulie's point, yeah.
All right, quickly, Teddy. Quickly, we have to take a quick break. Go ahead, quickly.
If it's going to be about money, fine. But then don't come into the argument, and don't let your fans come into the argument of saying, oh, you know, his legacy is that he's the greatest of all time. Don't walk around with dark glasses and big time everybody and act that way. I know you can do it if you want, but don't do it on the pretense that you're the greatest fighter around, because you're to do that, it's about more than money. It's about more than business. It's about taking risks. It's about testing yourself. It's about putting yourself in those waters to find out, how damn good am I?
Wednesday Night Fights. On the next Wednesday Night Fights, March 27th, join us for the main event. Puerto Rico's Joseph Blessed Hands Adorno takes on Nicholas the Axeman Walters from Jamaica. Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at proboxtv.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
Welcome back to Deep Waters. Wednesday Night Fights is going to be a great fight week leading up to that main event on the 30th between Tim Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora. All right, let's talk about Ryan Garcia, because Canelo Alvarez said that if Ryan Garcia was in his camp or in his surroundings, that Ryan would not fight. And of course, Ryan has had some issues with his mental health, if you believe some of the stuff that's come out on social media. Paulie, if you were in Ryan Garcia's camp and surrounded by Canelo, would you advise him to take this fight against Devin Haney? Would you train him?
Well, that's the thing. I think this is one of those times where, you know, you see when Canelo takes himself outside of being the center of attention, the guy makes sense. He's an older, mature athlete. He's an older, mature man, Canelo is. And from this perspective, I agree with him. You know, I think Canelo saw firsthand how Ryan behaves in camp. You know, Canelo is a professional through and through when he comes to his training camps, when it comes to his preparation. He's got his set times in his camp. He's got everything organized. Everything is on the ball. And then you've got Ryan, who just was kind of wanting to do what he wanted, and everybody usually lets him get away with it. But not in Canelo's camp, not with Canelo's team. And so therefore, Ryan, what did Ryan do? Ryan ended up leaving. So I think Canelo has this idea of Ryan that, hey, man, this is a very undisciplined kid, and now he's kind of falling off the wagon more and more. I agree with Canelo. I really do. I think in order to be at the level, no matter what my feelings are on Canelo and Benavidez, Canelo knows what it mentally takes to be at that level of the sport, at that level of your prime time, of your prime as an athlete, to stay at your peak. Ryan's not doing it. And Canelo recognizes that. And so Canelo recognizes that to be in a fight of this magnitude, you need to be at the prime of your peak, and then you need to be focused and everything harnessing on all cylinders. And they're not there. And Canelo sees that. So, of course, naturally, Canelo, who is a guy who's always focused and at the prime of his focus when he's in for a big fight, understands that Ryan is not prepared for this kind of fight.
Chris, what do you make of the comments there of Canelo saying that he wouldn't let Ryan fight in his current mental state?
Honestly, it echoes my sentiment from a few weeks ago when this was all going down initially. You know, aside from the mental health aspects, but obviously Ryan seems to be going through something. But, you know, a lot of people are saying their speculation that, oh, this is just to build the fight. He even said that himself. And obviously the people around him are still allowing him to go forward with this. So they're not being alerted to anything that would make them want to, you know, pull him from the fight or try and talk him out of the fight. But also he's his own man. If he wants to fight, he can fight. But from my aspect, I'm not looking at it not from the mental health aspect. I'm looking at it from actually being in shape. We are 4 weeks away. And looking at his training, what we've seen, what's been putting out, and just looking at him at the press conferences, he doesn't look that fit. And this is a 12-round contest against a very, very fit and disciplined guy in Devin Haney. So for me, you know, a 12-round fight, it takes a real camp. And if he's not going to be in the best physical condition going into the fight, number one, it's very dangerous to his health. This is boxing, guys. If you're not in great shape, the incidence of injury goes way up. Two, you're not going to put on a great display. And this is still entertainment and a sport, and we want to see all action. We want to see guys who are prepared and going in there and making the sport look good. If he goes out there and flops, it doesn't look good for the sport. Yeah. And then lastly, I mean, we want competition. We want a competitive fight. Again, if he goes out there and he's not ready, he's not fit, doesn't make weight, all these things that can mar the sport because there's going to be so many eyes on this. Not only the eyes that Ryan brings to the sport, which aren't normal boxing fans, but just the fact that we're getting a matchup of two big names in the sport. So we want the sport to look good.
Yeah.
Boxing first. And I think if this kid is not mentally or physically prepared, it's not a good look for the sport.
And that's one fighter you don't want to be unprepared against.
Exactly.
It's Devin Haney, who's one of the best in the business. All right, Ted, if you were his trainer, would you advise Ryan Garcia to go forward with this fight?
So look, there's always the danger of, you're being the guy who says, oh, no, I wouldn't do that. I care about the person and, the humanity of it, have compassion. And then people will say, oh, yeah, but when the money's there, But, I mean, I've walked away from fights where I didn't think that the guy should be in the ring. Without getting into names, I remember years ago, I had a fighter. He was a good fighter from Brooklyn, actually. And he had he got to the point where he was getting hit, and no matter how you trained him, he still couldn't get that elusive ability. And he had been hurt in the ring in camp. And I had him retire. I told him, you need to retire. And he went to someone else. He was angry. And he went to somebody else on 42nd Street, Times Square gym back in the day. The great Jimmy Glenn had the gym there. I don't know who he went with, but he went from Gleason's to there. And it turned out that just before the fight, they scheduled a fight for him. He had to get a new CAT scan or MRI, whatever it was back in those days. And it turned out that he failed it. And that the doctor said that if he gotten in the ring, he might not have gotten out of the ring. And so, obviously, I think, it's not just saying it and saying it for the sake of saying it to put good light on yourself. You have to care about the health of the fighter first. Otherwise, you shouldn't be in the damn business. And you're definitely not a trainer. You're not a doctor if you don't care about the patient. I mean, you may know the anatomy better than anybody. You might know medicines better than anybody. But if you don't care about the human spirit, about the person, you're not a doctor. I don't care how medically fit you are. And if you're not a person that cares about people, you're not a trainer at the end of the day. So, no, not only don't I think he should fight, I'm going to take it a step further. If he fights, I will suggest that the New York State Athletic Commission gets shut down.
Ooh, okay.
No, I will. Because there's no sense in having a commission if with everything that we've seen, with all the stuff out there that we've all seen that scares us. Some people laugh, they get stupid, but it's scary. It's scary. He's drinking a bottle. He's smoking weed. He's drinking a bottle of liquor. He's talking about taking hallucinogenics. He's saying that he got kidnapped and by a group that took him in the woods and forced him to watch little kids get raped. I mean, when you put it into that, and you're talking about a guy before a huge fight is in that kind of mental condition, if you're a commission and you do not force him to see qualified psychiatric people to be evaluated by the right medical people, shut the commission down.
There you go.
Why are taxpayers paying for that commission if
go.
they're not going to behave like a commission in a case like this?
There you go. All right. Strong ending there from Teddy Atlas. That does it for Deep Waters here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel.